I hope that thing's filled with brains. This could be amazing. I yield back.
Is that a request to have Mr. Bentz duck when you're talking? The gentleman's time has expired. The chair.
Without objection. Mr. Chairman, may I ask for a unanimous consent request, please? Since Mr.
Sure.
Graves has invited it, I think this is probably a good time to enter all 920 pages of Trump's Project 2025 into the record, where you can see on page 61, for example, the call for giving project proponents more control over regulatory clocks, page 524, for example, which rescinds the Biden rules and reinstates Trump rules under CEQ reforms. For NEPA, page 533, for example, where the Department of Interior is mandated to reinstate secretarial orders under the Trump administration, including time and page limits on NEPA documents. Page 533, for example, where consideration of eliminating judicial review and the challenges to the adequacy of NEPA documents, it goes on, and I would request unanimous
Reserving
consent.
the right to object.
I object also.
Reserving the right to object. Mr. Chairman, I have a question. How many trees would it take to print that? I'm just...
And they didn't even print the secret fourth pillar that's their radical emergency orders for the first 180 days. It's a great question.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Withdraw.
I think President Trump and his campaign has denied any dealings with 2025. Last night he said in the debate that he never has read it, nor does he want to read it. So to say that
some parts
Trump,
are good.
Excuse me, I've got the floor. to say that this is his project, I think is wrong, and it's wrong to enter it into the records.
Mr. Chairman, this is about this committee not even waiting for Donald Trump, actually proceeding now to implement parts of Project 2025. I can't imagine anything more relevant given the subject matter of this hearing, so I will request unanimous consent to enter it into the record so we can demystify this for Mr. Graves and others who seem to think that there's not a direct line.
So is there objection to entering the 2025 report that is not the Trump report as stated by Mr. Huffman?
Just written by Trump's complete inner circle, but yes.
Yes. There is objection. Moving right along, the chair now recognizes the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, for 5 minutes.
I must say I find that surprising. Rarely in the history of this committee or any other have I seen an objection to unanimous consent report for documents regardless of party submitting to it. I do not object to Republican submissions as opposed, personally opposed as I am to them on their grounds, including when I think they're factually incorrect. So I find that extraordinarily disappointing. Given the fact that Representative Huffman was not allowed to submit his unanimous consent on Project 2025, perhaps we should talk about it a little bit more. President Trump denied association with it last night. He also said a lot of other things. He talked about eating pets and transgender operations on migrants in prisons, and he talked about being the leader of fertilization. I mean, his denial doesn't really carry much weight here. The fact of the matter is that the Heritage Foundation, which has drafted Project 2025, has had a history documented of extraordinary influence over the Trump administration, including those individuals that were part of his administration, as well as the broader agenda of the Republican Party, which is what we're seeing play out here today. Project 2025 threatens to completely overturn abortion rights, women's rights, LGBT rights, civil liberties, free speech, and environmental protections for everyday Americans who deserve the right to clean air and clean water and to not be poisoned by the projects that are happening around them. It's no surprise that Project 2025 attacks the National Environmental Policy Act, one of our bedrock environmental laws intended to protect communities from harm and give them voice in federal decision-making. If there's a project that is going to potentially be installed next to your home that could spill cancerous chemicals and expose your kids to substances that could delay their mental and cognitive development, you would want to know. If there is a project or a fracking site that gets put in And when you wake up in the morning, your lungs burn because there's something in the air that you can't see, you would want to know. And you would want the right to intervene and have a say in what gets put where. Mr. Beard, are you familiar with Project 2025 and its intersections with NEPA?
Yes, I am.
And just so we're clear, again, because the document was not allowed to be submitted, I will read page 60 from Project 2025. Quote, the president should instruct the Council on Environmental Quality to rewrite its regulations implementing NEPA along the lines of the 2020 effort and restoring its key provisions, such as banning the use of cumulative impact analysis. Banning the use of analyzing the cumulative impact of a given project. Mr. Beard, what exactly is cumulative impact analysis? And can you briefly tell us about the Trump-era 2020 regulations that they are referring to here?
Yes, that in which you're speaking of in particular addresses with Project 2025, the cumulative and environmental justice impacts as well as the environmental justice impacts to communities like mine, communities across the country. It's important because as the climate changes and gets worse, those people are made to suffer and get the worst of the damage. With environmental justice impact, it talks about the access to being able to speak to the situations you mentioned that would affect you if something of that nature moved next door to you. But it also looks at the cumulative impacts because over time, those impacts worsen. We know the releases, we know what they're doing beforehand, but it takes time for that to materialize. And if it goes beyond 120 days, then we're stuck. So we have a problem with that. And we have to consider climate, environmental justice, and the cumulative impacts of these projects.
Thank you very much. You know, I think when we look at the broad impact of what's happening here, what we are also looking at is, especially in terms of Project 2025, is handing over all of the tools of our democracy and governance that is supposed to be wielded by the people and the public, for the people and the public, and handing those keys over directly to industry, to rewrite them however they see fit to maximize their own pocket, to line their own pockets at the expense of the health and dignity of the American people. Profit should not drive absolutely everything. And governance is where we are here to assert the rights and protections of people when a profit incentive or a profit motive then comes at odds with people's human rights. It may be profitable to poison a community, but that's not what we're here to do. There has to be lines. And you know, again, I am disappointed, and I would like to seek unanimous consent once again to submit Project 2025 under my personal request.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you very much.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The chair now recognizes Mr. Fulcher for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.